You're listening to This Week in Big Sky Football, a comprehensive look at all this week's action in Big Sky Football. Now here's your host, Scott Garrard.
Go ahead.
And welcome on in. It's another edition of This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Scott Garrard. Another great competitive weekend of college football is in the books, and we'll go back and look through it all. Also, a lot of great guests on tap for today. Montana coach Bob Stitt will join us in segment number 1. Southern Utah defensive end James Cowser in segment number 2. And as always, we'll wrap things up with a conversation with Craig Haley from Stats. But first, let's take a look at this past weekend's games, starting in Grand Forks, where North Dakota defeated Montana State 44-38. UND running back John Santiago 3 touchdowns in the game as he set the program's Division I record for most rushing yards in a season. North Dakota still hanging on with a chance to get to 7 wins, perhaps get into the playoff contention. Montana State falls to 4-4 and 2-3 in Big Sky play. Eastern Washington able to survive a windy day in Cheney as the Eagles overcome Weber State 14-13. Cooper Kupp 2 touchdown catches in that game as he moves to 54 career scores on his career. Wildcats led 10-0 and had a few field goal opportunities to win the game, but Eastern stays undefeated in the Big Sky, 5-0 and 6-2 overall. Southern Utah has the league's best defense, but it was tested in a big way as they lose to Cal Poly 54-37. Mustangs put up plenty of points, but the Thunderbirds forced 6 turnovers, including 5 fumbles. Also, the Thunderbirds score 3 defensive touchdowns, Mike Needham scoring 2 and James Cowser scoring 1. As a side note, James Cowser broke the FCS tackles for loss record. He's now a half tackle behind Jared Allen for the conference record. Again, Southern Utah gets the win over Cal Poly 54-37. Portland State continued its winning ways. Barney Ball rolled to a 35-16 victory over Montana. Alex Kress, another big offensive game, throwing for 2 touchdowns, rushing for 2 scores. Portland State 7-1 for the first time in school history, up to 9th in the country in the coaches poll. And finally, Northern Arizona with a massive 63-21 victory over Northern Colorado. NAU quarterback Case Kukas with 7 touchdown passes, including 4 to Emmanuel Butler. He's your Stats National Offensive Player of the Week as NAU moves to 3-2 in league play and 5-3 overall. All right, time to go out to the phones. Welcome in. He's the head coach of the University of Montana, Bob Stitt, kind enough to join us. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Hey, good conversation. I've been looking forward to this first one, a chance to catch up. It's been a season full of ups and downs for you throughout the season. Week 1, it's a feast. The other one, other games, it could be a bit of a famine. How do you try to negotiate a season with that, with your players emotionally and trying to make sure that they're up for every game?
Well, you definitely are a little bit of a psychologist as far as that goes, and we had such a high the first week beating the defending national champions, and we had a little bit of a letdown against Cal Poly, which we still had a chance to win, and got beat on a last play field goal. But then after that, you lose your starting quarterback, which was, I think he was leading the nation in passing at the time, and then you win a couple games with your backup, and then you lose him, and then you lose a game or win a game with your third string guy, and then we went out to Portland and felt pretty good about things, and they're a very good football team, and I think we made them look a little better. But, we did our part to do that, but they're a good team, and we really struggled last week, and now we got to bounce back this week and get it back on the win column.
How difficult? I mean, obviously this is in the range of the dumb questions, but how difficult is it as a coach to try to work through a season where you lose your top 2 quarterbacks?
It's very difficult, and you've put everything into basically the starter and the backup, and then you just feel like you're always starting over, and you don't feel like in your career you'd ever go through something like this where you get to your third quarterback, and it's happened to us twice in the last 3 years where we ended up on our third quarterback, and the first time we ended up rebounding and finishing 8-3, and we feel like we can do the same thing this year.
McKenna Simas with 6 touchdowns in his first start. Didn't respond quite as well in his second. How tough is that maturation process for a young quarterback in dealing with getting thrown into the fire the way that he has?
Well, he did a great job in the win over North Dakota, and you get a week to think about it and how well you did, and you want to do even more the next week, and it showed on Saturday where he was trying to do too many things, and he didn't let the game come to him, and just run the game plan, try to do a few too many things, and it really cost us early. We had some really nice plays called and didn't execute them, and then we didn't have a chance with the weather to be able to come back once the rain really started coming down.
Montana coach Bob Stitt joining us. One of your players, Derek Crittenden, is a finalist for the Campbell Trophy, meaning he'll get to go to New York City and be part of the award ceremony there. He's also a Rhodes Scholar candidate, a chemistry major, and has a chance to be the equivalent of the academic Heisman for college football. What's he like on the field? What's it like being able to coach a player with that kind of intellect?
Well, on the field, he's just a great player. You don't see that other side of him on the field. He's definitely a student of the game, and we've got a lot of great players on this team. But he's just a football player, and then when you get off the field, then you're really impressed with his intellect and knowledge. He's an information sponge, and just really a pleasure to be around, and a great leader on the field too. When he speaks, people listen. Our team respects him so much.
Last question, then we'll let you go. Obviously, it's a busy week for you. You're at 4-4. You have to keep winning to stay in that playoff contention. What's the message to the team week in and week out going forward?
It's just really focusing on the task at hand, and it sounds like coach speak. It's one game at a time, but it really is for us. And we've lost a few games where we just weren't very focused and disciplined, and it just takes a couple plays for you to not win a game, and we've gotten beat on a lot of trick plays this year, which is focus. We've gotten scored on the first drive of the game or the second half, which is focus. When you can do it for the rest of the game, but you can't do it coming out of the gates. We've really got to be more disciplined in that offensively. Same thing at the couple plays here or there, drop pass, a turnover, a wrong route, a wrong release on a route that costs us an interception. Those little things are the difference in us, having one loss and having 4 losses. We're very close, and we're just hoping that it'll click in, the light will come on, and we can make a run here at the end.
Great conversation, Coach. We appreciate you carving out a few moments of your time. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to doing this again soon.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Bob Stitt, head coach of the Montana Grizzlies. We're going to take a quick break and come back, and we'll reveal our Root Sports Players of the Week, and then we'll talk to Southern Utah's James Kauser. All that coming up and more when we return here on This Week in Big Sky Football.
We play to win, but it's bigger than winning. It's about authenticity, being true to yourself, genuine dreams and a country big enough to fit them, values and hard work, giving your best and giving back, working together, building a tradition bigger than any one of us, and showing the world every day who we are and how we play. We're Big Sky. We are the heart of the American West.
In the NCAA Division I Football Championship Subdivision, the game is played with perseverance, integrity, passion, character, and sportsmanship. As he works to honor the game and respect his teammates, opponents, officials, and fans, every FCS player grows in his responsibilities as a student and as a member of his campus and community. Dedicated to personal growth and success in the classroom, the NCAA Division I FCS. Every down, every day.
Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football.
Go ahead. Segment number 2 here on This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Scott Garrard. Southern Utah defensive end James Kauser will join us here in a moment as Southern Utah continues to pile up the wins. But first, let's reveal this week's Root Sports Big Sky Players of the Week. Starting on the offensive side, Northern Arizona quarterback Case Kukas is this week's Root Sports Offensive Player of the Week. Threw for 7 touchdown passes in the Lumberjacks win over Northern Colorado 63-21, tying a school record in the process NAU has a big showdown with Eastern Washington coming up this weekend. Portland State safety Patrick Onwasner is this week's Root Sports Defensive Player of the Week. How about this? 3 interceptions in the first quarter as the Vikings now advance to 7-1 on the season in a win over Montana. Portland State, by the way, moving up to number 9 in this week's poll. And Northern Arizona punter and kicker Ryan Hawkins is this week's Root Sports Special Teams Player of the Week. Hawkins limited Northern Colorado's top-ranked kickoff return unit by having every kickoff be a touchback. He also routinely pinned the Bears back with his punting. Hawkins leads the nation also in field goal percentage. All right, let's go out to the phones. Welcome in Southern Utah defensive end James Cowser, who's kind enough to join us. James, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Not as good as you are, man. You've had a magical season so far. This season has your team has been on fire. Take us through the journey of what this year's been like for you so far.
It was a rough start at first. Going 0-2 was really tough on us because we have a lot of we've been around for a long time. There's a lot of seniors who played since they were freshmen together. So 0-2 was really rough for us, and we kind of took that personal, I guess. And that's what we've been sticking with ever since is just having that 0-2 mentality. It's like doesn't matter who we play, we just got to fight for everything to get those wins.
And obviously there was a Utah State game at the beginning of the season that I'm sure you felt like you had won throughout the majority of that game. You outplayed Utah State. And so I'm sure it seems like this team has carried that chip on the shoulder throughout the majority of the season.
Oh, most definitely. It's frustrating to lose like that. And we kind of got embarrassed up at South Dakota State. I think we went in a little overconfident, and they showed us what a good football team is like. And so kind of those 2 games have really kind of, like you said, put a chip on our shoulder.
You guys are tied for the lead in the conference, in a good position to make the FCS playoffs right now. You went to the playoffs a couple of years ago. I'm sure you remember that journey. What's it been like talking to your teammates about what it takes to get that final push and get into the playoffs?
I think a lot of us remember how tough it is. Because especially at this point in the season with 3 games left, everyone's going to knock you out of the playoffs. Everyone's trying to finish their seasons off right as well. Mm-hmm. And so you can't expect that anyone's going to overlook you at all. Every team's going to give you their best punch. Every team's going to bring it, and you have to be they can throw at you.
Southern Utah defensive end James Cowser kind enough to join us. You broke the national record for tackles for loss in a win over Cal Poly last weekend. We'll talk about that game in a moment. And I know you're a team guy, and I know you like the team accolades, not necessarily the individual ones. But it's got to be nice to have your name next to that record.
That's fun. It definitely is fun to have. I mean, it's something to work for. But really, it's just how do you say it's a team effort. Like I don't feel like I really went outside of my role on the team. I don't feel like I went renegade and went crazy just to get those tackles for loss. Like they just kind of came. That just comes from having beasts alongside me, Well,
that's true. And a lot of people don't realize the fact that you get those tackles because everybody else is doing their job.
Exactly. Like we have great DBs, so it makes quarterbacks a little more afraid to throw, which gives me time to get some sacks.
No doubt. James Cowser joining us here on This Week in Big Sky Football. That win over Cal Poly featured 6 forced turnovers and 3 defensive touchdowns. You guys are racking up the turnovers these days. How does that feel?
It's fun. That's the kind of style of football we play, though. We're aggressive. We try to make big plays, and they just kind of keep coming, I guess.
What's it like playing a team like Cal Poly that is a little bit different offensively than a lot of the other teams you play?
It takes a lot of preparation in the week. I mean, those guys can run the ball very well, and so it just takes a lot of assignment football. It takes a lot of just focusing in and doing your part and then just grinding through the toughness. Because, I mean, they are a tough team. They'll cut you at any moment. They'll smack it down your throat. So you have to be willing to go all 4 quarters with them.
Was it a fun distraction playing a team like that that's so different than anybody else, or would you rather not avoid those guys always kind of, trying to cut you and going for the knees?
I think it's a little of both. I mean, sometimes you need that gut check just to see how tough you are, It's just a good time in the middle of the season to be like, hey, can you still bring it with the same intensity you brought at the first of the season when you know they're going to cut you? You know they're going to try to just hit you as hard as you can. But then other times, like, I don't know, it's rough on the body, but I think it's good. I think it's good to have.
So when you wake up Sunday morning after playing Cal Poly, you played Cal Poly, right?
Oh, 100%.
You're an NFL prospect, man. How have you developed throughout your career? Is this something that mentally you've always tried to prepare yourself to be ready to play at the next level?
No, not really. I guess I never really consciously thought got to get ready for NFL. It was always just got to get ready for next season, got to get ready for next week. I mean, I always study a lot of film, and so it's just kind of, how can I beat this guy? How can I beat this scheme? But never really was like, how can I get ready for NFL? And it's just kind of been a byproduct, I guess. Like people say an NFL product, but that just comes from playing my game, you know?
Now, you grew up in Fruit Heights, and if people aren't familiar with Utah geography, that's up north. And so tell us a little bit about your path that took you down to southern Utah.
Yeah. I mean, there was always like the BYU, Utah State ideas, but I mean, I just had walk-ons, prospects from them. And then Air Force was always a big school for me, and I almost went there, but it just wasn't the right fit. But then actually Weaver State, I'm like 10 minutes, 15 minutes from Weaver State, and I was so close to going there. But then when I took my trip down to southern Utah, I just felt like I fit well with the coaches, I fit well with the scheme, I fit with the program. It just kind of, everything just felt right, you know? And so I just went with that.
All right, so finally, let's put your coach hat on. You've got Montana State coming up on Root Sports, 1:30 kickoff time. So tell me what the keys are for you guys to get a win against Montana State.
Keys to beating Montana State? Montana State's always a great team, and they have an extremely explosive offense right now. And so I don't know. I haven't put much time into their defense on film, but I know you got to contain Drew Cup. He's a beast. He's fast. He can throw. You got to contain the big plays. They make a ton of big plays, and you have to stop the run. I think that's something they do extremely well that a ton of people don't really necessarily focus on, but they're extremely good at rushing the ball.
And I know you want to be playing for a long, long time, but have you thought about life after football, what your ambitions are?
I kind of want to do research right now. I'm not 100% set on that, but I'd love to study people and how they behave and, do academic papers, that sort of thing right now. That's kind of where I'm headed.
Wow. Impressive. Well, hey, James, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Southern Utah's James Cowser joining us here on This Week in Big Sky Football. All right, coming up, we'll have another conversation with Stats Craig Haley. We'll also get you all the information on who's playing this weekend and where you can watch those games. It's all straight ahead on segment number 3 here on This Week in Big Sky Football.
We play to win, but it's bigger than winning. It's about authenticity, being true to yourself, genuine dreams and a country big enough to fit them, values and hard work, giving your best and giving back, working together, building a tradition bigger than any one of us, and showing the world every day who we are and how we play. We're Big Sky. We are the heart of the American West.
In the NCAA Division I Football Championship Subdivision, the game is played with perseverance, integrity, passion, character, and sportsmanship. As he works to honor the game and respect his teammates, opponents, officials, and fans, every FCS player grows in his responsibilities as a student and as a member of his campus and community. Dedicated to personal growth and success in the classroom, the NCAA Division I FCS. Every down, every day.
Welcome back to This Week in Big Sky Football.
Go ahead. Welcome back. Segment number 3 here on This Week in Big Sky Football. I'm Scott Garrard. We've got Stats Craig Haley joining us here in just a moment. But before we get things started, let's preview this weekend's upcoming games. Let's start in Greeley, where top-ranked Portland State traveling to face Northern Colorado. Should be a fun one. Kicks off at high noon Mountain Time. You can catch all the action on WatchBigSky.com. UC Davis will travel to face Weber State, who's coming off that tough loss to Eastern Washington. Aggies and Wildcats will kick off at noon from Stewart Stadium. The game is available on KJAZ TV as well as WatchBigSky.com. Montana travels to Pocatello to face off against Idaho State. Grizzlies are fighting for their postseason lives. That battle will kick off at 1:35 Mountain at Holt Arena. The game is on Cal's Media in Montana, also available on WatchBigSky.com. Two of the league's best quarterbacks will face off against each other when Northern Arizona makes a road trip to Cheney to play Eastern Washington. That game kicks off at 3:05 Pacific Time from Roos Field and is available on SWX as well as WatchBigSky.com. And it's a battle of California teams Saturday night as the fever of Big Sky football breaks with a game between Sacramento State and Cal Poly. Kickoff is at 6:05 Pacific Time at Alex G. Spano Stadium in San Luis Obispo. Game is available also on WatchBigSky.com. Root Sports, your official television partner of the Big Sky Conference. This weekend's matchups on Root Sports is between Southern Utah and Montana State from Bozeman. Game time 1:30, and you can find that game on Root Sports as well as DirecTV's Audience Network. All right, time to go out to the phones. Welcome in the FCS senior editor from Stats. It's Craig Haley. Craig, good to chat with you again. How are you?
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, always a pleasure. So let's talk about those Southern Utah Thunderbirds, finally ranked in both polls, coming off a big home win over a tough Cal Poly team. Give me your thoughts on this Southern Utah team and how they're shaping up this year.
Well, it looks like they're playoff bound, and obviously they think they can win this title. It's been great. I mean, just the fact alone that they could win a game in a different fashion last week, 400-yard rushers from Cal Poly, giving up 37 points, and then show that they can, put up a number themselves, 54. So just a great season overall by the Thunderbirds.
It was interesting. We were talking to James Cowsley in the second segment, and he talked about how it was such a change of pace to be able to play a team like that, but they still are able to rally. They were still able to come up with the big stops defensively, even though they gave up some points, and found a way to get it done. And this team really seems to be poised to not only making the playoffs, but maybe doing some damage once they get there.
Yes, and James has really picked up momentum throughout the season in October and leading into November. And I tell you what, I'm sure you found out he is one of the great interviews around. He's a very thoughtful kid, and it's just great to talk to him.
All right, Northern Arizona's Case Kukas with a massive weekend, 7 touchdowns and an NAU win over Northern Colorado. So let's look ahead a little bit. Let's take a look at your playoff picks, locks, probables, and contenders when it comes to the Big Sky Conference.
Well, I'd have to think Eastern Washington's a lock. I think Portland State will be in. I think Southern Utah will get it done. I mean, they actually have some tough road games here, but I think they're going to be in. I hate to say it, but it could just be 3. I mean, maybe Northern Arizona, with the momentum they've gotten behind Case, can get in. But Montana State might just be to have a winning record unless somehow they can pull off a win, that maybe people aren't expecting. I think it could be a year for 3. It's a great league, right up there with the Missouri Valley as far as the best conferences. We've talked about how teams just keep knocking each other off, and sometimes it does catch up to you. But you never know. I mean, me saying that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So, it could be a crazy finish here.
Yeah, no doubt, too. And it's another thing that we've talked about time and time again where the Big Sky, in a weird way, has perhaps maybe gotten too good with too much parity because these teams seem to knock each other off, and you're not able to get those 4 or 5 teams that have separated themselves from the rest of the conference.
Well, that's true, but at the same time, I think as a conference you want that. You don't want to have, a team, running away with it and having the race decided by, the beginning of November. You want to have a meaningful November, and you have been getting that. I mean, last year was the epitome of it, and there's a good chance it's going to happen here again. So I think it may have its faults, but at the same time, it's too much of a positive.
Even taking it a step further, Southern Utah, Portland State, Eastern Washington, provided those 3 teams make the playoff. Who do you think has the best chance to make a deep run in those playoffs from what you've seen?
Well, I tell you what, I've done a 180 on how good Portland State is. I think beginning of the year they surprised me, and I was waiting to see if they can keep it up, and they're just getting it done. I mean, maybe they're going to have to show they can win offensively, but defensively they're just a tough team and athletic. And Eastern Washington is going to have to prove it has enough defense to make a deep run. They've been the staple here in the conference this decade, and I'm just still a little worried about their defense. Southern Utah, they might have to do it on the road, but they could probably do it. And I like those teams. I think North Dakota here, is another possibility to make the playoffs. They would have to do it on the road too, but I just like what Portland State has done, behind Barnum.
Let's look ahead a little bit to the national picture. It appears Missouri Valley starting to look like the Big Sky, just kind of beating up on each other a bit. Am I correct on that assessment?
Yes. It happened 2 years ago where they only had 2 playoff teams, and they wound up, winning the title with North Dakota State. Last year, they came back strong, had 5 playoff teams, and they all won in their first game. This year, I mean, they're out in front. They've had a great non-conference against other other teams, and obviously they played a lot of Big Sky games early on. But it's caught up to them in conference play, and they're probably not too happy about it either. But at the same time, you want to have strong teams and you want to have depth.
Your top five right now, the stats top five: Jacksonville State 1, Illinois State 2, Chattanooga 3, Eastern Washington 4, Richmond coming in at 5.
3 minutes.
Give me your top five, and if you agree with that assessment.
Well, pretty close. I'm one of the 15% that's voting Illinois State number one. I just think they've played a tougher state schedule than Jacksonville State. But Jacksonville State has answered everything here. It really, destroyed Eastern Kentucky. They're my number two. North Dakota State, I just seem to stick with the Bison. They've been getting it done. Then I have Chattanooga 4. And then I actually have Portland State 5. I have them just ahead of Eastern Washington. I'm so impressed with Portland State.
And so you've got Portland State ahead of Eastern.
I do, even though it doesn't reflect in the conference standings.
Yeah.
But I just think they're beating really good teams and have 2 FBS wins. You can't shortchange that. And we'll see come playoff time. Who's best, but I just think they've surged ahead a little bit.
Do you get much time to be able to watch Harvard play football?
I actually watched Harvard-Dartmouth Friday, Halloween Eve, and it was one of the best games of the season. So they're very impressive, 21 in a row.
Yeah, no doubt, 21-0, 7-0, but they're in kind of a unique situation. Tell us a little bit about them in postseason play.
Well, the Ivy League, the presidents just don't want to send their teams to the playoffs. The majority of the teams, the people in football in the Ivy League, it just makes them so mad. They want to be in the playoffs because every other sport there has a postseason. There's really no reason not to. They need to change that policy. There have been teams through the years that would do well in the playoffs. Harvard would probably win a game, maybe 2, but that's an accomplishment. And it's just unfortunate that they don't send their champion. I mean, the Harvard-Yale game trumps everything, it seems like. That if one of those teams is going to the playoffs, it's just going to be a letdown. And I think Harvard's starting to fight having playoffs just for that reason alone. And where everybody else in the league is all for it. But it's unique, but it's unfortunate, I think.
Well, Craig, always a pleasure. Sorry about putting you on the spot on Harvard, but I was curious to know about that team. Hey, thanks for your time. We look forward to catching up with you again soon.
All right, thanks, Scott.
You got it. Craig Haley, FCS senior editor from Stats, joining us here on This Week in Big Sky Football. Big thanks to him, as well as Montana coach Bob Stitt, also Southern Utah defensive end James Cowser, who joined us in the second segment. Also, a big thanks to Adrian Leiser for filling in for Austin Horton today, producing the show, and, of course, executive producer of This Week in Big Sky Football, John Oglesby. I'm Scott Garrard. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with you next week for another edition of This Week in Big Sky Football.